Good morning guys, it's Wednesday today, it's about 10 o'clock in the morning and I actually have the day off work. So today I'm going to be doing some work on the camper van. I'm going to be fitting some additional driving lights to the front of the van. Those of you that have probably the T4s might be the same, but the T5s and probably the T6s with the standard headlights will probably know that they're pretty bad. It's not so much that they're not bright, it's the fact that they have twin filament light bulbs. You do not get any fill on the dip section of the light when you're on main beam. So when you do go to main beam, a lot of the stuff that's close in front of the van you do lose the visibility of. I do already have some upgraded light bulbs in these. I think they're Osram Night Breakers maybe, or Silver Stars. They are better than the standard ones, but they still don't give you that feel that would be nice to have in the van. Do have fog lights in this van, but you're not really meant to drive with them and they don't really help too much. So today I'm going to be fitting some additional driving lights. I didn't want a massive light bar for this. I didn't really want to go for that overkill look where it kind of just lights up the road like crazy. I wanted more of a subtle look to it, something that's kind of just feels in that dip beam. So what I've done is I've got some lights. Now this is the first one I actually bought. Now these are very cheap. These are about £7 off Amazon. They're 18 watts and they just turn out to not really be bright enough. I never actually fitted them, but I trialed them in the house and they were just too dim, I think. They've got 6 lenses and they're meant to be 3 watt each or something like that. It's an 18 watt overall light, but it does seem pretty dim. So after that I kind of upgraded to these. They're a similar dimension, although they are about twice the weight, so I think they are built a lot better and the cooling fins on them are substantially longer. But this is a 40 watt driving light. It comes with 8 LED bulbs, they're 5 watts each, and also this one's quite good because it comes with different lenses. You've got a wide angle flood beam here, or lens, and these two here spot beams, and it's the same kind of all the way across. Like I say, it's 40 watt. It does look quite bright in the house. I've got 2 of them to fit. They come with this handy bracket which will allow me to hang it off a point on the van. So yeah, hopefully this is going to make a big difference. It's going to fill in the ground a bit more around the van and improve the lights on them. These were £29 off Amazon. The reviews are good on them, so hopefully they'll be reliable, hopefully they'll last. They are quite bright, not over the top, but should make a big difference to driving. Now, as most people probably know if you've seen the videos of this van, it's a caravel bumper on the front. There's not many aftermarket options for those. It's not like the T5.1s or the newer T6s where there's a lot of places on the bumper you can buy aftermarket parts to fit either daylight running lights or additional lights in the grille and stuff like that. There's not too many options I could really find for the caravel. Good thing about it though is that it is a big gap on the lower bumper on these, and I'm going to be fitting them just above that. Unfortunately it's not as stealth as I'd quite like, and in the near future I might be tinting the lenses ever so slightly on these just to take out that kind of shiny kind of look to them, so they don't really stand out so much. But these are going to be fitting in the top of the bumper. I've already trialed fitted one of them and I've got one of them on there now. It's not wired up. It's just literally in its slot. I'm going to be taking you through now fitting the other one on the other side, what you need to do to it, and I'm also going to be taking you through some of the wiring that you have to do. They are 40 watt and you probably potentially could wire them off just the headlight bulbs. The wiring might be able to take it, but around 40 watts it is a bit of a risk. And by using a relay we're only going to have to tap in and modify one of the connections on the van's kind of standard wiring, not 2. So I'm going to be fitting that with a relay off the battery with a fuse on there as well, and yeah, go from there really. So I'll get set up outside, get the camera set up, and then I'll talk you through how to fit them and where I'm going to put them on the van. Right, hi guys, I've actually come outside to do this bit of the video. Actually, I've come up to Dartmoor. It's quite a nice day and it's actually one of the few days when there's hardly any wind up here. It's almost still, which is a pretty rare thing, trust me. Now this is the van at the moment. Obviously it looks a bit ugly because I've got the grill off. This is the light that I've already fitted. It does protrude out slightly more than I wanted, and I'm probably going to modify this by moving the bracket even further back, just to push it back in a bit more. And like I said, in the future I will be tinting this, so it probably won't stick out so much. Now I've done this whole, I'm going to be doing the rest of it as well, this whole kind of fitment whilst leaving the bumper on. You can actually get your hand down the back here, which is why I have the grill off, and you can just about get into the bolt, the one bolt that goes up to hold the light on, just about get to it from the back there. You will need to modify or have a very stubby 14mm spanner to get in there and just tighten it the last few bits. I'm probably, to be honest, just going to cut down an old one I've got in half, so it's only about that long and I can just get it in there to tighten it up. It is fiddly, I'm not going to lie, but it's doable and it saves you having to take the whole bumper off, which should save you a lot of time. If you do, however, have one of these caravel bumpers and you want to take it off, from what I can remember, there's two bolts down by the front here on the side by the arch. You also have to undo the bolts that hold the arch liner in. I think there might be one or two small ones down there as well. The same on the other side. Then I think two in either side of here. I believe there's probably one behind this cover, and also you normally got one kind of in this bit of the bumper when you open the bonnet. So yeah, I've decided to leave it on though, just because I think it's going to save time and I can't be dealing with getting the bumper off. The problem is when you remove bumpers, you normally end up scratching them or doing some kind of damage to them. So that's going to stay on. Now the good thing about these light units is they have these grills, these big cooling fins on the back. Now that's really handy when it comes to lining up the actual light fitting on the back of the van, because what you can do is you can fit it in and it will actually slot in into the grill like that and stay there. You could potentially, if you really wanted to, secure that somehow from the back and just leave it pulled in those fins. It does mean that it fits flusher in the bumper and I do think it looks better, but I can't guarantee how it's going to last over the years with putting strain on these fins on the bumper. So I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be using the bracket. But what it does, it allows you to push it in on the last fin, and then when it's in there, I know then that it's exactly lined up, exactly the same position as this one. So all I have to do is mark it, which I've already done, and I have actually already drilled this hole before I came up to Dartmoor, before I left earlier. Take it out, and then you've already got your hole marked. You can drill the hole, kind of mark the centre as this light's in that position, drill the hole, and then get on with fitting it. Now all I'm going to do now is I'm going to unbolt this bracket. This bracket comes off. You get a bolt. I'm going to bolt it up through the bottom of the bumper, and then obviously fit this bracket. Once this bracket is secure, I can then obviously go about bolting these ones up on the side, which will secure the bracket in the actual light. You do, when you fit these, when you drill the hole, there is a support bit of plastic on the top of this bumper, which you can't feel, but you can feel if you put your hand underneath up inside there. You'll want to drill slightly to kind of towards the front of the van, away from the front of the van when you drill in the hole, just so it takes out a bit of the plastic from that support beam. And then also what you want to do is you want to fit a big washer in there so it spreads the weight across this plastic, so the plastic isn't the thickest when you fit the light. And by fitting a big washer, it will unfortunately catch on that support beam. So what you have to do is cut one side of the washer so it's flat, it's square. And then what that'll do is it will mean that the washer will sit flat, square against the support beam. If you don't cut the washer, it won't fit flat, it will sit in an angle. And what that means is rather than your light sitting flat like that, it will sit in an angle when you tighten it up. And it will tend to push the bottom of the light out and it won't be so flush. I'm going to crack on with fitting that on there now. It is fiddly, like I said. I'll get some footage of me kind of bolting it up through so you kind of understand where I'm coming from. With regard to drilling the hole though quickly, because you're drilling at an angle, when you actually drill up through here, obviously be careful you don't catch this bit of the grill. But when you're drilling up, the drill bit will tend to slide. So a good tip with that is to get a knife or something sharp and just kind of mark and cut into the plastic first. Give it something that the drill bit can grip to so it doesn't just slide. So I did that with a knife earlier. Yeah, I'll crack on now. I'll get this bracket in there. Right, I've got the bracket in there now, which wasn't too bad actually. Now, one of the quite fiddly bits of this is actually getting the bolts from this onto the bracket, and that's simply because obviously you don't have much room in there because you have these plastic things blocking where the Allen key would go. Now that lines up perfectly, that's how I wanted it. It's obviously not straight at the moment. What you've got to try and do is, and you might find a better way of doing this, you might be able to glue or sellotape these bolts in, but basically you drop the nut in there, in that slot, and then this small tiny Allen key bolt will actually fit in there. The problem is you have to make sure this bolt, or this nut, sorry, stays level in the right position, which it will normally if you just hold it down like that. Put it in front of the bracket and then push this bolt through whilst missing this kind of bit of the grill. A good way of doing it is leave it a bit loose so you can actually twist the bracket. Fit this first, and then when that's done up and tight and all set up, then I would recommend probably then doing the bolt up afterwards. Yeah, I'll crack on with that and I'll catch up with you in a minute. Right, that's pretty much the lights fitted and the wiring on the back of them done now. I will have to finish it off a bit when I get home. Unfortunately, my soldering iron has run out of gas. The bottle I had with it is empty as well, so I can't finish putting those heat shrink tubing on it. I've just temporarily put a bit of electrical tape on there to hold them together. So when I get home, I'm not going to bother filming it, but I'm going to have to finish those off, shrinking them down. I'm also going to have to then strap the wires just on the back of the bumper here, in front of the intercooler. There's already a big wiring loom there, factory wiring loom that goes along the back, so I'm just literally going to strap it to that. It comes out now just in front of the battery. Now I've got 4 wires. All I need to do is to find out the 2 earths and the 2 lives. You don't need a multimeter to work that out. It's all you can do is if you put, they're LED, so if you literally put them the wrong way around on the battery, you won't get any light at all. So you just basically put them on the battery. If it doesn't work, reverse them around. If it works, then you know that the one on the neutral is the neutral. If you then keep the wire on the live, and then just put the earth to a few bolts around the chassis on the front of the van, and it suddenly the lights come on and work, you know that there's a good earth on that bolt. So all I'm going to be doing is I'm not going to be putting, as I said, both of the neutrals onto the battery. I don't like doing that. I think it looks unsightly when you've got too many wires going to the battery. I'm going to try and fit those to a bolt somewhere to keep them out of the way, make them a bit neater. I'm just now going to do that to work out what bolt works well. I'm going to set up the neutrals on it first. I'm going to have to do 3 neutrals now. I'm going to have to do one for the one for each light as 2, and then one for the relay. So I'll crack on with that now. I'll catch up with you when that's done. So I'm coming along now, and I'm getting to the point, to be honest, I can't really do too much more without having gas for my soldering iron. There's a lot of kind of connectors here and stuff, which I want to shrink down with a soldering iron before I go any further, which I just simply can't do. But I'm getting to the point that I can actually show it off to you and show you so you know how it's going to work and how it's going to happen. Now what I've done is, for my neutrals, I've used this bolt here on the side of the chassis, just on the inner wing. It comes off really easy. It's quite a small bolt, that one. As long as you clean the metal back underneath the bolt before you put your connections on there, they'll make a good connection. I've not done it up properly yet because I've got to take this off again when I get back home and just do this heat shrink down properly. But my two neutrals off both lights run on these wires that I've extended up to this point. Also, I've run a third wire from this point which comes up here, which is a neutral for the relay, which I'll explain in a minute. I also then have another cable coming up here. Now this is two cables. These are both the lives for the light. So this is where the power is going to go down to each light. So this here, once it's shrink down, is also going to go onto the relay. What I've also got is I've got these kind of little jumper wires, we'd call them. One end is a spade connector here, and the other one is a ring terminal. Again, heat shrink stuff on which I've not managed to shrink down yet. Sometimes you can do these with a lighter, but I couldn't even find a lighter in the van. What's going to happen with these is once they're done, that is simply going to get bolted onto the battery there on the live, and then I'm going to have this fuse holder. It's going to clip on the top onto that spade connector, and then we're going to have another spade connector going on the other side of that fuse holder. And then what that will do then is connect onto my relay, and what that will do is put power from the battery into the relay. So when this relay is switched on, the power will go from the battery through the fuse holder, through the fuse, into the relay, out the other side of the relay, onto this connection here, which will then go down into the live of the lights and switch them on. Now, a relay is a bit like a remote switch that can be switched by other devices or other components or electrical bits on the van. So you need a feed, something called a signal, they call it. I need a signal to tell this when to come on and off. Now, my driving lights are going to come on with the main beam, so that pretty much means I can fit these lights, not having to worry about dazzling anyone, not having to worry about too many of the rules for the MOTs and stuff like that. Generally speaking, driving lights, as long as they don't dazzle road users, and as long as they are higher, I think, than your fog lights or a certain distance off the ground, I think you can fit them as much as you want. They're not going to dazzle road users because they're going to be coming on and off with the main beam, so as soon as I go back to dipped, they will be off. So I need to take a signal from my main beam to put onto this relay. So what I'm going to do is, I've simply got my volt tester here. All I'm going to do is put it onto voltage, nice and easy, to 20 volt scale, and I'm going to put one of the neutral of it onto the battery, and then I'm going to put the other end of it into the actual connector for the light bulbs here. It's got three connections, this. One is going to be a neutral, one is going to be dipped, and one is going to be main. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and put the dipped lights on in the van just very quickly, and then I'll be able to tell which one is live and which one is which one is dipped and which one is main. Right, I've got the dipped beams on now, and I always like to do this first to check, make sure I'm on the right wire before I do it. So I'm going to be simply putting the live of this connector or this tester into one of the wires, putting it onto the neutral of the battery. There's no volts on that. I will say, if you've got some really fancy setup on your van, maybe LED lighting or something like that, you might want to look into whether it's safe to do this. This is a very simple van, and I know it's not going to cause any issues. Right, going to try that other connector. Right, we've got 12 volts on that now, so by the looks of it, the blue wire is the dipped. Just going to check the white wire now. Yeah, there's no voltage on the white wire at all. Going to go and put the main beam on now quickly. Now what I'd expect to see by the colours, I'd probably expect to see there being 12 volts on that white wire now, which there is, yeah, and the yellow wire should now be off. Yeah, no volts. And if I put the neutral onto the brown and the live onto the white, I should have 12 volts. Yeah, so the brown is the neutral wire in it. So I know that the white wire is my main beam feed. All I have to do is tap or tee into that white wire, which I'm not going to be doing with connectors because it doesn't give you a reliable join. Some people use Scotch locks, but the problem is when you use them in the engine bay, you get lots of vibrations and they can eventually eat through the cable and cause issues. If you're going to be teeing into main cables like this, especially around the engine bay, you want to be slicing a bit of the insulation off, or totally cutting the wire, putting heat shrink tube in, down it, and then soldering it back together and shrinking it off properly and then taping it up. So all I'm going to do is cut that wire, but I'm going to be doing it when I get back. But I will just quickly talk you through what will happen is when I tee into that white wire, the tee that I put into it will come up into the relay, and that will be the trigger. The other end of the connector on that, it will need a neutral because that electricity needs to go from somewhere. So it will go into the relay, out the other end, into this cable. Where have I put it? I'll show you earlier. This one here for the neutral. It just goes onto the earth of the van. So it will look something like this. You'll have this connector going on one end of the relay. The other end of the relay, you will have the wire I've just ran from that live. The other end of this, on this side, you'll have the power from the battery, and the other side of it, you'll have then the cable going off to the actual light. So they're quite simple to understand relays, and when you buy them, if you look on the back of any relay, you see a simple diagram which tells you how to wire it. It is in circuit diagrams, so you will have to familiarise yourself slightly with some basics. Also, fuse wise, these are 40 watt light units. 40 watts, so 40 divided by 10 is 4, divided by 12 would be slightly less. So these are probably around 3.5 amps per light unit, so 2 of them would be 7 amps. You have something called surging power. When the lights come on, they will draw a bit more than their static running power. So I'll probably be running this fuse to 15 or 20 amp fuse in the fuse holder. That will give me enough overhead so it doesn't blow, but it will give me any safety a safety cut out if any of the wiring goes bad. This relay is a 30 amp relay, so this is plenty enough as well to do it. Yeah, once I've done this relay as well, I'm just going to pretty much be strapping it to some of the main cables down there. It's one of those things, relays, in an ideal world I would have them bolted up to something more substantial, but that does mean drilling holes in things under the engine bay and stuff like that. If I can just strap it up out the way and it looks neat and reliable, I normally go for that method. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Hopefully this has given you enough information to kind of do it yourself if you want to improve it, if you want to fit these lights. This method I've shown does involve a few fiddly jobs, a few fiddly things, but it does mean you don't have to remove the bumper. Hopefully it's going to make a big difference to using it at night. Thanks for watching this one. I'll leave it there. If there's any tips or things I can think of extra to put in the video, I will be doing them with a bit of b-roll or putting them in the description afterwards. Hopefully going to be doing a few more things to the van like this over the next couple of months. Want to get back to making more vlogs like this to do with the van and stuff like that. So thanks for watching. I'll catch up with you on the next one.